Alrighty. Okay. I was going to quiet listening to your picture. Oh, you're good.
Yes, I did.
Hi, everyone. Hi. That was nice to see you guys. I know it's hot out, but let's see. Okay, who here has watched Star Trek the original series? Yeah. Who's watched Firefly? Yeah. Who's watched neither? Aww. Well, hopefully this will make you want to watch both now. And I'm sure all the people sitting around you have now memorized your face. And I'm taking that person after this panel and making them watch both. So, good luck. All right, welcome to the Firefly and Star Trek original series crew comparison panel. My name is Megan, or you can also call me the Enterprise.
I'm Aylin. I'm dressed as Serenity.
And I'm Angela, and I'm dressed as myself.
City of the universe. You control both of us. All right.
Let the crossovers begin.
So the worlds. You guys want to start? The worlds?
Yes. We also want to say that this, we want to encourage audience participation because we know that we cannot hold the breadth and the depth of all of these verses. So we encourage a little active participation. So, but we ask like hands up, no yelling. We don't want this to become a shouting match. My verse is better, no, my verse is better. So, if you want if you want to say something poignant or something funny, please feel free to raise your hand and say, hey, I know this about this, because everybody knows something about something.
It's true. Even if you haven't watched it, you know something.
Okay, what we know about Firefly, the universe of Firefly. We don't really know a whole heck of a lot. We have the centralized planets, obviously, that are Alliance controlled, and then we have the outliers, where the further out you get, the more Reavers and more wild it seems to be. And that's where our crew usually ends up getting into little scuffs and tussles and everything, except whenever they go straight into the Alliance's mouth, so to speak. Whereas
in Star Trek, we have, in the original series, the United Federation of Planets is sort of in its own area, and then there's the area that's, as you can see here at the bottom left corner, the Romulan Empire. At this time, the Romulans are basically super mysterious, sort of enemies, antagonists. You don't really know much about them, and they're basically like on the outskirts, sort of like how like she was saying with the Reavers being on the outskirts of that one, and the high society being in the center. It's sort of what we got here with like all the connections on one area of the universe and then mysterious people on the other side.
So what I'd like to interject about that is, clearly in the Firefly verse, we see the separation between the upper class, the lower class, and it's very distinct, obviously, the further you get, and it sort of mimics, and it is sort of telling about, the way that our society now is. It's just more stark separation, so to speak. A lot of the people think that, the unification of planets, if you remember on the Firefly episode when Mal gets into a little scuffle because everyone's like, yay for Unification Day! Yeah, this is the best thing ever! And Mal's like, no, I don't think so. A lot of people think that the unification of the planets is great, but in these outlier worlds, the centralized planets really don't care about the outlier worlds whenever it comes to medicine, when it comes to government assistance and whatever. Whereas I don't know, maybe you can talk about this for Star Trek.
Yeah.
Whereas the United Federation of Planets is more united, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes a really good comparison because for them, the United Federation of Planets, their goal is to bring equality, you make all these planets friends, let's all help each other out equally. Of course, if you watch it, you can see that doesn't always work out perfectly, but their, ideal is to try and help everyone, help any planets in need, join forces, like, you help me with this side and I'll help you with that side. So it tends to work out a lot better and more equally. Of course, if everything was perfect, they wouldn't have much of a plot for the show. But it tends to work out a lot better where, like, when she was saying with the Alliance is supposed to be so great and they don't really help the people that need it the
really
most.
self-serving.
Yeah, whereas at least the crew of the Enterprise tries to help the people who need it the most. Yes?
It seems like it's a cross comparison between a dystopian society and a utopian society. But the dystopian has an elitist class that's creating the discontention. With the Star Trek comparison, it's a utopian society where the thought process is everybody works together, we're all one. The Firefly universe is let me stick to my own. So it creates it's very similar to worlds, but like the only difference really seems to be the viewpoint of the individual, the persons within it.
Yeah, like individualistic versus community. Firefly, they obviously have their own super close-knit communities, but they're a lot smaller and like closer, whereas Star Trek is a bit more spread.
So it's like it's the difference between finding a utopia in a dystopia versus finding pockets of dystopian values within a utopian society.
So in a different way, the way the worlds are set up is what sets up the conflicts.
We have the job. Do you want to describe it on whichever of you?
Oh, okay. Yes. So the job is anything and everything, right? Jobs are hard to come by. We see that, many people have to work in mines in the outer planets in order to find work. They end up getting the miner sickness, So Firefly, doesn't matter if it's legal, illegal, it's kind of walking the line, I think that Mal has a very, and I'll get into this later with Mal, he has a very sort of blended way of seeing morality. He takes on illegal jobs, such as in the train job, but once he finds out it's stealing medicine, he gives the medicine back. Really putting his crew into peril with, I blanked. Yes, Niska, thank you. So the job has a morality code, so to speak. It's not necessarily a prime directive, so to speak, but it is his.
So for Star Trek, their goal is, what was I going to say? To explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. Basically, that's, they're there to explore, meet people, make friends with different civilizations, learn more. So it's a bit different because they're not doing it like in Firefly's survival. That's the point, is our crew needs to survive, so we're going to do whatever. Whereas with the original series, it's all about gaining knowledge, making alliances, making friends. And I guess I'll talk about Kirk when we talk about the captains, but he's also interesting to compare to Mal. But so that's basically their job is a lot different. They're already prosperous, so they're trying to just gain more knowledge and kind of spread that prosperity to wherever they can.
And if you ask certain people, I think Kirk's job is to have fun with the ladies.
Take off his shirt.
Take off his shirt. Look at me, I'm powerful.
All right, and speaking of the captains, let's go to the captain.
All right, like I said before, Mal, he's got a pretty blended morality. He's a very honorable person. He will fight for your honor. He will fight for his crew. He really exemplifies a sort of walk the line type of individual. He's very stoic. He's very doesn't show his emotions. his emotions a couple of times, and that's really where you see the depth of his feeling. Like he's very adamant about his role in the Browncoats. He is very adamant about protecting his crew. He is very adamant about honor, loyalty, respect. And once you remove those out of the equation, then he has no friendship for you, basically. He's also a just man. You know, he will come to you and give you options. If you don't like that option, here's this option, and here's this option. But he always gives you a choice. You know, your interaction with him is based on free will.
I love Kirk. So Kirk, as the captain, is in the United Federation of Planets. He's sort of a rebel sometimes. Like, unlike Mal, he's supposed to stay more on the side of lawful, but he also can kind of, depending on what he feels like, be sort of chaotic good. You know, like if he says, you know what, this law is wrong, I'm going to break it. So, too bad, guys. I need to save these people, so I'm just going to do this. He'll often do it. So I think, at least in that way, he and Mal would probably be friends because they both, even though they tend to be on other sides of the laws, although I don't know if that's exactly Mal's fault considering the sort of laws that he has in his universe, I think they'll always be friends because when it comes to like helping people, saving lives, both of them don't care about like government rules. They're like, I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to save my crew, save these people. Like, I don't want any less suffering. Like they can both get kind of wild that way.
He does work the prime directive sometimes. To the benefit of others.
So if anyone has any, as we go through each grouping, like right now we're on the captains, if you have any ideas that you think of, like what if these two met, what would they be like, feel free to raise your hand and tell us your headcanons, scenes, whatever.
Yes.
I think Mal was definitely affected by the war. And though the war's over, in his mind it's not. Because of what the central government has done. As you pointed out, the central planets, they're okay, but once you move outside, they've abandoned those people. Well, make it on your own. And so he's still fighting for them. But Kirk is, okay, I've got the prime directive and I shouldn't go against that, but the prime directive is to help all people, not hurt them.
Right.
I think sometimes Kirk violates the prime directive because he thinks it's fun.
Sometimes I think that's right.
Whatever, I feel like doing this, so I feel like, time traveling or something today, so I'm just gonna, who cares?
But yes, generally the Enterprise crew expands outward.
Mm-hmm.
So if Captain Mount was in the Star Trek universe and had his own starship
God.
with his own crew, and Spock was his number one, do you think he would violate the prime directive as often as Kirk, or even more so?
So I don't know if you guys in the back can hear, but he said if Captain Mal was in the Star Trek universe and had his own crew would it be his own Firefly crew with Spock as number one?
Sure.
His own
Spock
Firefly
is number
crew.
one. He has his own Firefly crew. He's got his own starship. Would he violate?
Would he violate the prime directive? Heck yes.
Oh.
I think Zoe would have something to say about Spock being his number one.
Yeah, Zoe would be like, excuse me?
I also think that Mal is a very logical person, so I think he and Spock would be dudes.
That's true.
You know?
I'm sure if Matt would be comfortable with running a starship, though, it might be too.
He prefers the family thing of his
He wants to do
Serenity.
his own thing. I mean,
But
if
being
you
like,
run a
oh,
starship,
fancy captain.
you have to follow certain regulations, and that will not sit well with him.
Or would he just make Spock do most of the mad work and then he just says, just do it?
I think he wants to be in charge, though.
I'm sure.
It would be a race against who would break face first. It'd be like, I don't know who would win. I really don't.
With his comments about that Mal would make Spock run all the administration stuff, is that what Kirk already does?
Basically, like, what do you have a crew for if you can't make us do stuff?
Not much will change.
And the super entry?
He was saying that the outer planets have been abandoned by the central government. I'm not so sure that's true. In my opinion, I think the people on the outer planets, they wanted to be out of the central. They did not like all the regulations. So they found other planets where they could do their own thing. Yes, they were desperate for different things that the central planets had.
That's true.
But I think that basically this survival of the fittest, whatever, they're going to make it on their own because that's what they wanted. I don't think it was they were tossed out or ignored.
That's true.
No, some of those people were on the existing planets.
Yeah, so she said the outer people on the outer planets in the Firefly universe. Somebody already said that the Alliance the Alliance pushed them out, but it's really a lot of them chose to leave, to go farther away, to get out of the Alliance control. So even though they need stuff from the Alliance, that would kind of make sense too, because the Alliance probably knows that's one of the reasons they're going so far is because they're trying to avoid them. So like, well, fine, well, we won't give you medicine then, or it'll take forever. So that's true. That makes sense. Checkered shirt with the hat.
The statement earlier about Mal and the Enterprise depends on before the war Mal or after the war Mal. If it was before the war, I think he would be very similar to Kirk, where he was very upstanding, very honorable. He would follow the kind of the code because that's what he believed in. But after the war, he kind of lost his faith, or at least he seemed to lose his faith in structured organization and that approach. So I think it depends on when you get Mal, and then the comment about people being forced out and things like that. I think the main antagonist and the reason that so many people on the outer rim have an issue with the Central Core is because the Central Core still tries to dictate rules to them. The Central Core is not giving them anything, not doing anything, not helping anything, but still demanding that you pay homage to us and you do what we want you to do. And I think that's the main antagonist for Mal. It's like, okay, well, these people want to be left alone, then you leave them alone. Well, then they've made their choice, but the Central Core is not allowing them to do that. And I think that's why he's such an antagonist towards that.
And that's what I was getting to whenever you had mentioned that they chose to be out. Some of these people already lived on these planets. You know, they didn't choose having to pay all the taxes to the unified planets, but they're paying and they're not getting the protection, the supplies, the services, but they've already lived there because these people can't afford to go on spaceships or starships or whatever in order to get to centralized planets. And even if they did go to centralized planets, what would they do there if it's a more elitist sort of planet? You know, they have rural skills, they have mining, they have farming, they have building, you know. So, I mean, it's I think a question of the fact that they're already being forced to pay into a system that's not giving back to them.
All right, we need to move on to the next set of people, but real quick.
Yeah, they're pretty different characters, but their similarities. They're both charming, quick thinking, and they're protective and generally beloved by their crew. Except maybe Simon.
So now, second in command. Okay, so Zoe, I think, you know, she's basically second in command of Serenity. Did you want to go?
Almost about as stoic as Mal, you know, fought with him in the war. She is,
Well, are we...
Do you want me to go? So, as you could probably guess by second in command, we're going to be comparing her with Spock.
the matchups? They're both extremely intelligent. They're extremely loyal also to their captains, but they're also willing to question them, which is extremely important to everyone's survival and our entertainment.
And yet, even when they question them, like, it's extremely rare, right? Because Spock doesn't like it because he's the captain, and Spock goes by the rules of he's the captain. Ultimately, what he says goes, unless something's clearly off. He'll generally be like, you know, let's just go with that. And the same thing as we see kind of happens in Firefly with Wash getting annoyed with Zoe. Like, why are you always like just going along with whatever Mal says? And you know how he kind of mocks her, like. So, yeah. Any?
Zoe Spock mashup.
That's what the poker face is.
Yes.
I think they're each what their own captain needs. They both have a really good sight for what could happen if they do what they're doing, and their captains are kind of, you know, crazy. And so they've got
She's saying they have crazy captains, in case you can't hear in the back.
and yet they are both incredibly strong and can get their captain to safety when they need it. 'Cause
That's
they
true.
will.
They're really good support in getting, yeah, she said they can get their captains to safety when they need it. That is true. Like, if you're gonna have a good second in command, you need them to be as capable as you are, if not more so, to deal with you.
And I think, I don't know what it is, but I think that both of them show some fearlessness that is just freaking amazing. So Zoe will just go into a death trap, basically, and she's like, I don't care, I'll beat it, I don't care, and everyone's like, you know, this is suicide. She's like, I don't care, I'll do it, I'll take on 50,000 people if I have to. And then Spock, he'll just go into a reactor and just be like, hey, you know, I did this.
Thing in the back, baby. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I guess another good point is that both commanders, pretty much the crew, will accept them as the next leader, because in life and death situations, like with Spock and when I guess the Doomsday machine,
Yes.
it's like, this guy, he's an admiral. It's like, you need to take care of this, because this guy's gonna get us all killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're leaders in their
Yeah,
own
the
right.
admiral. Yeah, if you guys don't know what test he's talking about, in one episode, I think Kirk was gone for some reason.
He was on the ship.
He was on the other ship that's in trouble, and they can't really
That's
communicate
just
with
like
him to get orders from him. So this admiral guy that happens to be hanging out on the Enterprise, there's obviously a reason, but the admiral guy is like, okay, I'm in charge. But the rest of the crew is like, you're terrible. You don't know what you're doing. Like, have you ever even commanded a starship? Like, you're giving us horrible directions. So they're like, Spock, please, like, you need to take over because we don't trust anyone other than you to take over for Captain Kirk.
To compare that to Firefly, the scene where Jane gets the chain of command. No one's okay with that.
So like,
Yeah, it's like, no. Yes.
I think the second in commands are also really good at being the level head for their slightly reckless captains. There are a lot of situations with both of them where the captain's like, I'm going to do the thing, and then the second in command is like, please do not do the thing.
Yes. Exactly.
example, well, that went well.
In the back right there. Yeah.
To follow on what she was saying, they both play the level head really well. They both have the intelligence to back that up in a way that their captain will listen to.
That's true. The captains listen to their level heads because sometimes there's level-headed people and the captain's like, whatever, like, you're just boring. So, but like, these people will actually listen.
And the real contrast between them is they both also have a very strong skill set that supports what their universe and their ship's mission is, and that's where you see the difference in the two universes.
That's true.
Spock's skill set is an intellectual, scientific skill set, not so much in the gritty can of worms, whereas Zoe is so strong in handling the gritty situations that they end up in.
And the warfare and the strategic planning and
Putting the
everything.
bullets
Her as
into
a
people.
soldier on the ship, even though she and Mal were there together.
It's true.
Yes,
All right, next is the pilot.
Yeah, then.
They will know we're going to just pretend Serenity didn't have, or the end of Serenity doesn't exist.
There's that one scene where I don't know what happened.
I don't know why you guys are on because everything is totally fine.
He's right there.
And he's going to be compared with Sulu. Who's sort of like, he's not exactly like pilot. I think he's called, what are you?
He's chief helmsman.
Helmsman, yes. So he's not like officially pilot, but he's basically good enough.
It's just fine.
So we got Wash, the sort of goof of the ship, He's very good at his job. He is good at doing kamikaze stunts on the plane. He's a very good pilot. But he also recognizes the need for humor in very dangerous situations. So I think he's a lot comic relief, and I think he brings a little bit of tangible heart to Serenity, like as far as the crew goes.
Yeah, and then Sulu can also be kind of sarcastic sometimes, kind of laugh at people.
Oh my.
It's not exactly he's not quite like the Joker of the group like Wash is, but he can still be pretty amusing sometimes. He also has some like hidden skills that you don't always think of, like his fencing. Do you guys remember that one time he got like kind of infected with the thing that sort of basically makes you kind of drunk? And then he was like randomly shirtless in fencing and thinking he's D'Artagnan. So, you know, I'm sure the whole crew got a good laugh out of that. So, but yeah, they're both like really cool pilots, really, you know, interesting people to be around.
Fencing.
Huh?
I said Wash did something like fencing. I'm sorry, that was too soon? I'm sorry, it's too soon.
That's part that I don't know what she's talking about. Yes.
I think the fact that your introduction to Wash was him playing with dinosaurs just gives a really good description of how he is as a character.
Exactly.
And that he is a comic relief, and
Yeah.
he can relate to the everyman pretty well too.
Yeah.
Especially here.
That is true.
And he grows a mighty fine mustache.
We don't talk about that.
Anyone more comments on these two pilots?
Wash, Sulu,
Sort of
Wash,
pilots?
Sulu.
We all love them? Yes.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, but we get to see Wash and all of his skill as a pilot, but we don't really get to see a whole lot of Sulu.
That's true. And
his
Sulu,
skill. But it's implied he's a great helmsman.
Yeah.
The best.
he's awesome. I mean, basically, what you get is basically everyone on the Enterprise tends to be the best of the best. Especially, you see it a lot more in Next Generation when they're talking about like the history of the Enterprise, which I know this isn't about Next Gen, but like you see them like referring, because this is one of the first Enterprises, and so these are the people who become legendary, so that later on in the Next Generation, people are like, oh my god, I want to be on the Enterprise. All the cool people, all the very best people go there. So clearly Sulu, like, and we see him, he does a lot of amazing things, but it's true, like, flying a starship isn't really the same as flying a Firefly. Like, you need skills, obviously, and he has to do a lot of, like, intense stuff, but it's not the same as, like, intense maneuvers, like, doing the crazy Ivan. So, like, not quite the same. So that's true. We don't quite see him as much of a pilot, but I mean, then he's just a helmsman.
You see him as a really good addition to the crew, as sort of like backups on missions and stuff like that. So, yeah.
God, I think it's kind of like comparing an automatic to a manual.
That's true. Like, Sulu, we love you, but
That's an automatic.
it's true. Yes.
Actually, it's more like comparing the difference between a speedboat and a cruise ship.
Yes, that's true.
You see the maneuvers the Enterprise is doing, try maneuvering a cruise ship.
Exactly. You need, yes, you do need different types of piloting skills for each one, but yeah, that's true. Yes.
Counterpoint to that, I think that the piloting skills are demonstrated exactly as much as the special effects budget would allow.
True. Good job.
Animated series, they do a lot more with the ship because it didn't cost any more to move it around on the
That's
space.
true.
Oh, in the animated series,
Yeah.
they do more of the ship. That makes sense. That makes sense. That is a good point. All right, the engineer.
Yes.
Okay. This is a pretty easy one. Kaylee and Scotty.
They are the miracle workers.
Can you guys imagine these two getting together and fangirling about their ships? How much they love these ships.
Giving tours.
I feel like if we're talking about engineers, I feel like we're talking about really the soul of the ship and what makes it go, and they're just magicians with their ship.
They
both
know the
of
inner
them.
workings.
And I think Kaylee I think she would be able to go on to the starship and be like, oh, you just move this around and you don't really need this and all of this.
Scotty would love her so much. They would make like the ultimate starship baby together. Like there would be no romance between them, but like with the ship, they would build like the most beautiful ship. Oh my gosh.
And they've been known to make the impossible happen time and time again.
Because they're captains,
Because of the
needing them to be.
And their captains don't listen to them about needing parts. You notice that? I need that, coupler. I do. And he's like, no, you just make it happen somewhere else. And then he's like, I can't make it work, Captain. And they're like, make it happen. I'm like, Can you imagine the amount of stress that both of them are under? They're like, I can't
Yes.
On what she was just saying, when Scotty shows up in the Next Generation, he actually mentions that what he did is he always underestimated what he could do.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Kirk wouldn't make him do something he couldn't.
Yeah, in case you guys can't hear in the background, he's saying when Scotty shows up in the Next Generation, he says he always had to make the ship do something that it couldn't do.
No,
he always underestimated.
Did more to do it than actually did, just so the captain wouldn't tell him to do something he couldn't.
It would take 8 hours and it actually takes 2.
Oh, so he overestimated
He's giving
it
advice to Geordi, I believe.
in his report to the captain. So he'd be like, well, this is actually going to take 8 hours, so I can't do it. And then it takes 2 hours that he does it. And then everybody's like, Scotty, you're so amazing.
I think that's how most mechanics and IT professionals work.
All right, yes.
I think pretty much in general they're both like great engineers, just because like you can take them from their own ship, put them on a different ship, and literally like tell the crew like, oh, this is not how it's gonna work. We're gonna do it my way, and it works better. I mean, literally you took Scotty, you took him from the Enterprise to Excelsior, and when the Enterprise needed help, Excelsior was dead in the water after like taking a couple things out. And
that's true.
She just went on her ship. She literally like put it back together after it was like damaged, and they were able to get away from the enemy.
That's true.
They literally just like take junk and just make it into a miracle.
I think one of my favorite episodes of Firefly is whenever they go to the fancy party and she just has all of the men around her. She's like, what are you doing with your ship? I can do that, blah, blah. And everyone's like, ooh.
Exactly. That's what I think of. Like, I'm pretty sure that was what would happen with Scotty and Kaylee, except like those guys were all just like listening to Kaylee like, wow, she's so knowledgeable. But like both of these two are so knowledgeable. Oh my God, like their two crews wouldn't be able to pull them apart. They would be talking for days. Yes.
I like that both characters think of their ships as like human beings.
Yes.
Characters, it's very organic to them. Like most of the other crew, this is our ship, this is a thing, this is this, but this is her, this is what she can do, this is what she can handle.
Yes.
They are the closest bonds with their ship. Any of the crew members.
If you guys couldn't hear him, he's basically saying like these two think of their ships as basically living beings. Like to the rest of the crew, it might be like, oh, this is a place we live. This is a great vehicle for getting around in. And it's beautiful, but for them, it's like their child. It's like their beloved part of them. Yes.
I also want to add to that they've both been willing to end a physical or verbal battle for defending their ship.
That's true. If anyone insults their ship, oh my God, watch out, better run. Don't. All right, so communications. This is obviously, Firefly doesn't quite have a communications officer like the Enterprise does. They have the, what do they call Jane? What did they tell Simon his job was? Public relations, but we didn't count Jane really as communications because, so, as you guys guessed, Inara.
Even though they did say that, Simon's like, what do you pay him for?
Inara.
Yeah. I put Inara as communications because I think that she does a really good way of smoothing things over that whenever the Serenity crew sort of gets into their little incidents. So she's also known as Mile calls her the ambassador, because even though her profession, she is considered like an elite person not necessarily royalty, but she caters to royalty, she caters to the upper class, and she's been trained in communications and culture and knowledgeable about everything, all cultures. So, and she has to do that for her job. So I believe that being able to speak to anyone, for anyone, is, I believe that's what makes her a good communications officer.
And similarly, Uhura isn't always shown as much, not very much doing that much on the show, but she is like, she's a master of like many languages. She can like break codes. She's pretty amazing for basically a minor character. Like she always has to communicate stuff and, you know, make things work. Like even she like knows how her like the electronics, the technology of her communication stuff, she knows how it works and like has to try and fix it. You know, if Scotty's busy with the rest of the ship, obviously we don't have time for the engineering people to come if the engine's gonna blow up, but hey, I need communication, so let me try and fix this. So both of them are really like, both are people that you see, oh, look at that beautiful lady, and people might just, you know, underestimate them because they're just so pretty. They'll just stand around.
I believe both these ladies have a lot of knowledge that they house in there.
Yeah, and both of them can deal with all of the people on their crew that they have to deal with.
And they can handle themselves, both of them can handle themselves.
Yes.
With okay, I can't say it.
Uhura?
Yeah.
Oh.
Usually I can, not at the moment. She usually has important answers for the storyline.
Yes,
If they need
he's
to know
saying
something-
she usually had important answers for the storyline. That is true.
Yeah, so it wasn't that she wasn't important, it was, you know, they
Right.
got her important things to do.
Exactly, yes. She had her own way of importance, yes. Yes.
So I just think that it was interesting the amount of trust that these characters possessed. Because like Uhura, she was communication, so he was talking to the Klingons or any of the other ones and he didn't know what they were saying, and he was trusting her to translate all of the negotiations through her. And
It's true.
The level of trust that they had was way higher than some of the engineers.
Yeah, exactly. Kirk had to trust Uhura to be able to, you know, do whatever communications and translating that he needed, and Mal has to trust Inara, even though, you know, he doesn't like to involve her always in certain things. But like the one time with the the train job, where Inara had to come and like, I mean, Mal and Zoe didn't expect it, but Inara came and was like, oh, these two servants ran away. She slaps Mal, and Mal's like, oh my God, she slapped me. And like, that requires a lot of trust for them to just like go along with what she's doing, because they had no idea she was coming. So she comes in all like flowy and beautiful, awing everyone. So they have to just go with whatever she says. So that
with
also
her papers.
with
her papers.
Yes.
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 That's what I wanted to comment on, was that Anara uses her status as a companion to kind of sway things in her direction sometimes. Like with the train job, because they didn't know how long they would be stuck there, but they needed to get off of that planet as soon as possible.
Yes.
She was like, okay, these are mine, I need to leave with them right now.
And since
That's
she's
the only reason that they were able to be
Since
like,
she's
oh.
considered upper class, she's trusted by the upper class, you know, and trusted by even the lower class as well, because, oh, her papers, they're legit. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
In a sense too, that each character is both like the voice of their respective ships. Because again, sometimes as companions, she like has to like go out, talk to like her, oh, this is my ship, we can do this for you. Whereas like communications are down or visuals out. The first voice you hear is Aurora like speaking out to the crew. And it's like, this is who we are, we're the Enterprise. We're here in peace and such. So really, once you get the the sincereness of their voice, and at least still, it's powerful. Then you know what you're working with.
Yeah, they're definitely.
Yeah, they are both very gentle people, but also very powerful.
The Doctor. I'm sure you guys easily know Simon and Dr. McCoy.
Wait, why did I
Mr.
hear
Grumpy
some
people.
groans over here? Do we not have doctor lovers over here? Like, no Simon?
Don't you guys love grumpy doctors? Look at their excited faces.
Simon didn't get all
They're so
mean and
happy.
grouchy until the movie, all right? Before that, he was just whiny. It's okay.
Well, what do you expect? He was sexually frustrated.
That was his fault.
gets it in the comics. I'm just letting you know.
So they're both pretty stubborn people, which is also important to the stories, especially when they butt heads with the captain.
I think the fact that he is a near genius kind of gives him an air of sort of authority he feels like he has over people, whereas, that man, he's Firefly. But, and I think that, I think, what?
Are you talking about McCoy?
Yeah, I think that McCoy would sort of, I think that he would be like, come on, get yourself together, get a grip and everything. So I think that McCoy is more personable,
More down to earth.
really. And I think that Simon is just, I think Simon is very focused on one thing, and it's curing his sister, but he still has that mentality of needing to help people, as we saw on Ariel first, I saw.
I was gonna say, part of that probably too is like, McCoy and Kirk, they're friends, he's kind of a confidant, where Simon's kind of the tag-along vegetable to me.
That's true. If you guys didn't hear, he's saying McCoy and Kirk are more friends. McCoy is often like Kirk's confidant, whereas Simon and Mal are a bit more antagonistic.
Yeah, Simon's always afraid that he's gonna get like kicked off the ship or sold for booty or something like that, so. Money.
Kind of booty?
Not that kind of booty.
Yeah, as the newcomer, it's harder for Mal to trust Simon.
Yeah.
But another thing I really liked about the two of them is you'll see, like, when they go to a place like that, there's people, whatever level of doctors they have, if they're not as knowledgeable as them, they're like, you know what, you're doing that wrong, I'm taking over, get out of the way, I'm saving this person. Like, both of them are really good doctors and use that, are determined to use that. They're not shy about using that to be like, move over, you don't know what you're doing.
Even if it puts them in danger.
Exactly.
One more? Yes.
One more.
I wanted to comment on the fact that Simon might not necessarily be taken as seriously by his crew at first, especially because McCoy has a lot more experience.
That's true.
Like, because you said they are the best of the best on the Enterprise, and that's why they have such a legacy. But Simon was just a kid that worked in a hospital.
Yeah. And I mean, in the beginning,
while
to the Firefly crew, he just shows up and they're like, oh, you happen to be a doctor? That's useful. So, yeah. All right, so next we have the wild cards. So basically everyone that doesn't quite fit into the same category, but we have Shepherd Book. Also, don't say any Oz because I don't know what you're talking about. Jane, a very wild card. River, also in her way, very wild. And then we also put Chekhov. Thank you, Angela, for the perfect picture of Chekhov. Really matches.
I had to get him when he was wild.
So yeah, if you guys want to.
Yeah, to start off, I think a good comparison is Chekhov and River. Kid geniuses.
It's true. Both are extremely smart. Both can be kind of underestimated because of their age. But I have a feeling if they met up, sorry Chekhov, but I think River would beat you in a fight.
But do you think that they would play tag together?
Oh my god, they would totally play tag together. That would be amazing. Their captains would be like, what are you guys doing? This is so unprofessional. And then they'd tag the captain. We're going to win. We're going to team up against you. Who else? Jane. And a lot of times it seems like they kind of put Chekhov in charge of like the weapons of the ship. He's not like one of the security people, but like they'll be like, okay, phasers on whatever for the ship itself. So I kind of sometimes compare him with Jane because he's also sort of weapons guy for his ship.
I mean, there's Vera.
Yeah.
Yes.
Technically, Chekhov is kind of head of security because whenever they do go deploy security people, he's usually there to lead them.
That's true.
I don't know if that's his official title. I think his official title is navigator.
Yeah, Chekhov's more of the navigator.
He does everything on the ship pretty much.
Yeah. Chekhov's just like, okay, you're just a smart kid, well, we'll make you do this now, so. Yes, in the green shirt.
I was going to say, I think a better comparison to Jane would be Worf from Next Generation.
True. If we had Next Generation for this one, since we're focusing on original series, it's not quite, but definitely Jane and Worf oh my god, those two, can you imagine them doing like training things together? If they had to train like new recruits, oh my god, those poor new recruits.
Jane would try to blow them apart, whereas Worf would actually try to train them.
That's true. In the very back, standing up.
Yeah, the reason they put Chekhov in the very beginning was it was a television show that was showing at the time called The Monkeys. And what they wanted is they wanted a very like mod, you know, hippie-ish type of.
That's true,
image.
he's got like the Beatles haircut.
That's why they casted him. They wanted that kind of the Monkeys type.
Yeah, like that youthful kind of cute kid on the show. That's cool. Okay, so real quick, then the Nemesis. What do we have? So if you guys remember Jubal Early, very exciting person, interesting. Is he a lion? We just don't know. And both of them go onto these respective ships while Khan, they don't realize it at first, and then Jubal Early clearly like was not welcomed onto the ship at all. They both end up sort of manipulating the crew for their own ends, which are not really good ends when you find out them. I mean, Jubal, it's much more obvious, and Khan, they find out a little bit later, but both of them kind of become antagonists of the crew, and both get rocketed off the ships and come back later. If you haven't read the Serenity comics, please do, because Jubal comes back.
He comes back.
So, just so you know.
And he's still crazy.
Nothing has changed. Do you guys want to add anything?
No, the only thing that I would add to this is that I think that there's always many tactics that the crew try to approach both of these characters, and both of these characters will have none of it. You know, they try, you know, beating it out of them. They try, you know, speaking to their logical sense. They will not have it. They have a goal. It's focused, and they will not end. Like, it will not stop until they complete their goal. So,
yes.
I don't have any experience with comics. I don't know about there, but Mal's wife, whatever her official name is.
Oh, we have a slide with Yosef.
Yeah. She kind of works better against Khan because they come on, you know.
She is a lot more manipulative. I mean, Jubal's kind of manipulative, but she is super manipulative. That's true. Yes.
I actually think they work really well. They're both zealots.
They are both zealots, he said. That's true.
They're both very single-minded, and they're seeing one's, you know, just the way that they approach things. That's what Miss said. Is very single-minded. You can't really argue with them. You can't. They're almost like a force to be reckoned with, rather than just a being. And that's what makes them great villains, is the fact that they just are so alien in their thought process that it's hard to understand their point of viewpoint. It makes them so dark and so villainous.
That is true. Okay, real quick, yes.
To amplify what you were just saying, but they're both absolutely convinced of their own superiority.
That is true. It's true. Okay. Next, the opposition. So just so you know, there's a Reaver picture, so if any of you are queasy, like, don't look at it. But yeah, so we have the Reavers, obviously, huge antagonists. I also put the operative, thank you, as sort of himself and as a representative of the Alliance. So there are these two big forces that the Firefly crew has to deal with. And then in the original series, the Klingons, and if you guys have ever seen Worf, like clearly something happened during that time. How they changed into that, like whatever. But the Klingons in the original series were basically like the antagonists of the United Federation of Planets. Like they were always fighting. So that was the big force that Kirk and his crew had to work against.
And one thing you'll notice about all of these are that they're pretty mysterious at first. I mean, when the operative first starts chasing down the Firefly, they don't know what they're up against. And Reavers, I mean, until later in the movie, they had no idea what that was about. And the Klingons, I mean, they were at war because they understood so little about them.
Yeah. And then another thing I wanted to mention was, at least with the operative specifically, not the Alliance, but with him and the Klingons, though it happens much later with the Klingons in Next Gen, they eventually form, shouldn't say they eventually form alliances because that'll give a different. They eventually become sort of allies with these people. Like, you know, at the end of Serenity, the operative sort of helps him, and then like by the time Next Gen comes around, clearly the Klingons are working more with the United Federation of Planets than against it, like they are in this show.
However, you can't reason with a Reaver.
Yeah. Yeah. Trouble. So since somebody mentioned your soft bridge, we'll bring this up real quick. Galen, do you want to, since it's your idea? Just start off. Let's start off.
Anyways, anyway, these characters, Yosaf Bridge and Harry Mudd, they go by different names. Also kind of mysterious.
The triple guys. The triple guys first.
Really?
No. Okay, so the first guy is, oh my gosh, I just forgot his name. I put it on there. No. Yosaf Bridge guy, Monty. Sorry. Some miscommunication over here. Monty ends up bringing back Yosaf Bridge. We've already seen her before as Mel's wife, and now she's Monty's wife. But we sort of had compared that to the triple salesman, who does not have a name as far as I know. He sort of brings this, like, sort of innocent, you think, he didn't realize quite how, what the triples would become. So they both kind of like bring these back, like bring these into the crew's lives, this like bit of chaos, and pretty exciting. Okay, now you can do Harry Mudd. I don't know if you guys know Harry Mudd, but he's clearly an exciting character. Look at that mustache. You want me to? And basically we compared him with her because both of them try to get the crew to do what they want. He tries to manipulate the crew into helping him out so that he can make money. And as far as we know, that generally seems to also be her goal, is to make money. Though as we see in some later episodes, she seems to have a more complicated life and past than just, I just want to manipulate people to make money, like, Whereas Harry Mudd, so just look at that face, he just likes money, so. But they both try to manipulate the crew and are luckily mostly unsuccessful, so. The ship. You're the ship, say something.
All right, well, they're both beautiful. They're definitely quite different. I mean, there's the Enterprise, this Grand Federation starship. It's kept pretty clean. There's Firefly, also beautiful. Maybe a little bit dirtier. Maybe a few bits falling off. But it's a bit easier for them to replace stuff on the Enterprise. And also, if you don't ship it already, you should ship the ships. Got a little space part there. And real quick, we also wanted to play you some songs. Both of them, both shows have songs made up about their characters. And you'll probably at least recognize them. How many people know the words to this song?
Yeah, sing along time. You guys are terrible time.
Gave him what for, our love for him now be hard to explain. The hero of Canton, the man they call Jane.
Everybody knows the chorus all the time.
Now Jane saw on his backs breaking. He saw the mothers.
Okay, so sadly we have to cut that off a bit short because you guys all know that one. However, only some of you will probably recognize this one. If it will actually play properly, if that would help. One second. Where's the There you go, guys. There you go. If you've never seen this, it's exciting. If you didn't know Spock could play an instrument, now you know.
Starship Enterprise, there's someone who's in Satan's guise, whose devil ears and devil eyes could rip your heart from you. At first his look would hypnotize, and then his touch would vaporize. His alien love could victimize and rip your heart from you. And that's why female astronauts, oh very female astronauts, we terrified and overwrought to find what he would do. Oh, since space, be wary, be wary, be wary. Girls in space, be wary. We know not what you do.
So, even just the contrast between the two songs, if you know the hero of Canton, the crew did not expect that at all when they ended up in Canton, that there would be like a song about Jane being a hero. Because if you know Jane, it's pretty unexpected. Whereas in this one, you know, she's clearly, she's part of the crew, that's Uhura, if you can see properly, and she's making a joke about Spock, but everybody looks up to Spock. I mean, once again, he's the second in command, so it's kind of interesting contrast that she's sort of like joking about how he looks like the devil and you better beware if you meet up with him, and so it's like kind of the opposite of, you know, that the hero of Canton by sort of like mocking him a little, making him seem more like demonic, and
so both examples of
but they're both,
songs.
you know, love filled.
Does anybody have anything to add? Any questions?
Any last comments?
Thank you. Back with the ship, I think a big difference between the two is ownership with the ship.
True. She says the big difference is ownership.
Because in Firefly, that belongs to Mal, it's his. Whereas the Enterprise is used, but it doesn't belong to Captain Kirk. And so he might love his ship, but it's not his.
That's true.
Whereas with Firefly, it's his, it's not.
He does own it, yes. Yes. That is true. Yes.
Kirk might not own the Enterprise, but I wouldn't tell him that.
That's true. Don't tell Kirk he doesn't own the Enterprise, because if you, that's true. That's a good point, because even if you tried to take it away from him, it's not.
I do believe they also refer to it as our ship, my ship. You know, they have a personal connection with it, even if they don't personally own it. But they destroy it like we do. Right? One last.
I was going to say, play upon that too, it's like both ships have seen like their share of combat. I mean, especially with the Enterprise. I mean, it's had to be taken apart, it's gotten blown up itself. It literally died during one of the movies, so I mean, it wasn't even the original after that.
Yeah, both ships have been beaten up a lot, even though the Enterprise has a bit more resources to be built back up again.
Torpedoes. Also, the Enterprise's weapons.
One was taken from a junkyard, you know, and rebuilt. Exactly. Oh, one more, just one more.
Okay. Getting back to Uhura and Nara,
Uhura
it
and
seems like
Nara?
with Uhura in the movies, she really got to expand a lot more on her character of what she really is and how she interacts with people and
That's true.
how important she is. It's just, like I said, observation-wise.
That's true. They
Whereas
finally
Nara-
like gave, and it's interesting because when you watch the original series, a lot of these characters that are the main crew are like much more minor. But in the movies later on, they're like, you know what, these were the core of the crew, and so they really focus on these several characters a lot more than they do on the TV series.
Yeah, whereas Inara from the very get-go,
Inara
you
always
just-
gets a chance
Yeah,
to.
you always saw how important she was, how she needed to be the ambassador, smooth things over, introductions to planets.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much for coming.
And go spread the Trekkies and brown coats everywhere.